Developers are selling condos from 15% to 25% below their peak value, while some buyers are realizing losses as little as $100,000 or over $500,000. The number of unsold condos doubled in less than a year, and we're seeing presale launches hit rock bottom, from 1,100 units in a month all the way down to only 64 units. Is this the sign of a total collapse, or is this just the beginning of a free fall? In this video, I'm going to answer all the questions, go through the real data of why developers are fumbling so hard, look at the math of how buyers are losing over $500,000 potentially on some of these presale deals they bought in 2021 and 2022, and what this means moving forward. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to get a really good deal on a condo, or maybe this is your sign to just stay away from the housing market. Let's get into this article. All right, why are developers actually selling condos below costs? So a developer in Surrey, BC listed 30 brand new condos for sale to a single buyer at once, prices 15 to 20% below the original asking price. Shortly after, they got a call from another East Van developer to offload 18 more units, and then another call, 8 townhouses in Victoria. But here's the thing, developers who spent years building these homes are now quietly and sometimes very quietly trying to exit as fast as they possibly can. And this is telling us something important about where the market actually is right now. So let's get right into this. So how 2,500 unsold condos became 5,400 in 1 year. So according to CMHC, 2,500 newly built condos were sitting vacant and unsold in Metro Vancouver in late 2025. But by the end of that year, the figure climbed to over 5,400 completed unsold units, nearly matching the all-time record set back in 1995. So here we are, 2,500 unsold units in late 2025. By the end of that year, we're up to 5,400 unsold units, and the record here, 1995, 5,500 unsold units. Now, these units are mainly piled up in Burnaby, especially along the Metrotown corridor, as well as Coquitlam and Surrey City Centre. And a lot of this inventory came from multiple towers that started during 2020 to the 2022 presale boom. Interest rates were near zero. Investors were buying anything with four walls. And now these towers are finished and most of those investors are all gone. The president of Rennie, which is a real estate marketing company and brokerage, says the highest level of developer-owned unsold inventory in 24 years. And this is a crazy stat actually, is this one right here. The city accounts for almost 30% of all unsold completed homes in the entire country. This is all of Canada, despite being a fraction of Toronto's size. That is a huge problem. So now why sitting on empty units is not an option. So every month, the developer still has holding costs on every single one of these units. So they have to pay property tax, insurance, financing costs, and strata fees, multiplied by dozens, if not hundreds of unsold units. So the meter is running. And it says here, some of these projects are selling at a pace of 1 or 2 units per month. And at that rate, it could take years to fully sell out a building. And for a developer who borrowed money and is bleeding money every single month on top of their interest payments, it's not an option. So that's why they're running the calculations. They take a 15 to 20% hit up front, sell everything all at once to a couple sophisticated buyers, close in 30 days, help stop the bleeding. And they say here that they'll take a bigger loss sitting on these units. This is not a business strategy. This is someone cutting their losses before things get worse. But here's the weird thing is these big bulk sales are handled very quietly, sometimes pretty secretively. The main reason is if the bank finds out that they just sold units in the building at $200 to $250 dollars per square foot less than what early buyers paid, those earlier buyers might not be able to get the same mortgage they were counting on because the banks are looking at comparable sales in the building. This means some buyers might walk away from the deposit entirely, developers not getting the money, and the effects go well beyond the developer. All right, so now the data behind the collapse, because these aren't isolated stories. In February 2026, there were only 64 new presale homes launched in Greater Vancouver. So that's about 6% of the historical average. And we see here a typical February, there's 1,100 presale launches. And this is February 2026 with only 64 presale launches. So in Q1 2026, there were 0 concrete high-rise launches in Vancouver. The same quarter a year earlier had 152 launches. These numbers are actually insane and kind of terrifying. So January 2026 saw residential sales at 1,100, down nearly 29% year over year, and about 31% below the 10-year average. The GVR's own chief economist called 2025 one of the lowest annual sales totals in almost 2 decades. And now looking at data from May 2026, we're looking at sales ratio at 13.1%, just hovering over the 12% threshold that separates a buyer's market from a balanced market. So we're at nearly 8 months of inventory and well above the 10-year average of inventory. Pre-sale transactions across the province total 124 units in Q1 of 2026. In Q1 of 2021, that number was nearly 6,000. So these aren't just dips, these are historic lows across every single metric all at once. All right, so who's getting hurt right now? The main ones are the buyers who purchased pre-sale condos in 2021 and 2022 during the peak. These buyers are now facing losses of up to $100,000 to $500,000 or more as their units complete in a softer market in 2026. Some buyers are choosing to walk away from their deposits entirely and close at some of these buyers are choosing to walk away from their deposits entirely instead of closing at a price that's way higher than what the condo is actually worth today. Investors themselves have largely left the conversation. Their share of the new condo purchases dropped from 50% of the market to only 7%. And the main reason is the math just stopped working for them because vacancy rates in Metro Vancouver more than doubled to 3.7%. This is a 30-year high. And when vacancy is that high and rents start softening, the numbers on an investor-owned condo simply just doesn't make sense. What this actually signals for buyers? Well, bulk sales at 15 to 20% below asking combined with a benchmark price that's already down nearly 8% year over year, this means that some units are trading at prices not seen in years. And this is totally true. Sophisticated rental housing investors can now get new product at roughly 25% below peak market values. And with construction activity falling off a cliff, no new towers are launching, there's a genuine argument that the supply shortage of 2028 and 2029 is already being built into the and developers who have been holding on and hoping that prices would recover are just starting to accept reality. This kind of acceptance is painful for the developers, of course, and is usually what happens near the bottom of a cycle, not the middle of a free fall. And condos, just one market segment of Greater Vancouver's housing market. Detached sales were up 14% year over year in April 2026. The detached segment usually leads condo recovery by 2 to 4 quarters, so they could be at least 6 months to 12 years ahead of where condo markets are right now. And if that pattern holds, then condo prices may fall. And if that pattern holds, condo prices may find their floor sometime in the second half of 2026 or early on in 2027. But the condo market is not there yet. Inventory is still elevated. New launches are non-existent, and buyers who got caught at the peak in 2020 and 2022 are still working through the damage. This is a chart of monthly sales over 3 years. These big dips here are all during the winter months. The main thing to notice is that the number of sales, the lows are lower every single year, and the highs are not as high. So for anyone sitting on the sidelines right now, whether you're a first-time home buyer, an investor, or someone who already owns a condo and is wondering what happens next, the bulk sales are not necessarily a reason to panic. It's just a sign that the market is repricing. But the bigger question is what happens when repricing is done, construction has all but stopped, and demand eventually comes back. If history is any guide, the bottom of the market is approaching. It looks like it might be here, or we're going to see it in the next 6 to 12 months. The window to buy at the bottom doesn't stay open for long. So this was your overview of why developers are selling at a loss, bulk selling all these condos at such low prices, and what it means for you as a buyer in this market, or maybe as an owner who purchased a pre-sale condo at such a high price. More to come, more news to follow. Everything's changing every single day. So make sure you're subscribed. Stay tuned for the next video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.